Good day, friends. It's been a little bit, and I have been really sick with something. Yeah, just the constant coughing is making my voice sound very, smoker like. So, no, I didn't take up a new habit. I'm just getting over this. So, bear with me. I'll try and keep it short, but it's a big topic today. And I wanted to start with a little story of something that happened right in the middle of researching this and writing a few notes down. I was sitting on my porch and I was painting my toenails, like a nice bright orange color. Anyway, and this teenage girl rides up on her bike. Now, this girl has come twice before. Once she just appeared in my yard as I was mowing, and she wanted to try to figure out, she thought this was her friend's house based on the description of the house, and anyway, I ended up trying to help her, and I ended up driving her a few blocks over because it was a really hot day to this friend's house. Anyway, long story short, I could tell right away, bless her heart, she is a needy young lady. She does live in town. I don't have a lot of information on her, but I do know that right away, she overstepped boundaries, right? She asked to use my phone without even knowing who I was. She asked, personal questions. And so I could tell right away, okay, I need to be careful with this situation because I have over helped people to my detriment in the past. And so I thought, no, I gotta be careful with this. And so sure enough though, a few days later, she all of a sudden appeared at my house again. And she wanted a ride to town. And so I was really sick. And so I'd come to the door and I was like, I'm sorry, like I'm in bed with fever, and so I just shut the door and that was it. But I thought, okay, if she feels brave enough to come, she's going to come again. And then sure enough, I'm out there today and she comes riding up on her bike. She's obviously hot, and sweaty and was probably, I don't know, but the first thing she does after saying, how are you doing? Are you feeling better? Is, do you have $5? And I was like, wow, I am in the middle of writing notes about how to deal with controlling and manipulative people. I was like mid, pen stroke. And I thought, wow, like, how am I going to actually deal with this in real time? How am I going to, not enable or overhelp someone who is asking me? How am I going to draw those boundaries and those limits with this young girl? So I said, no, I do not give out money. I don't have any money for you. I was really clear. And then she remembered lots of things that I had said to her before, right? Because she'd asked for the money to get something to eat. And first of all, there's nowhere around here that she could buy anything to eat. She would have to bike, back to Edson anyway. So then she said, well, does the offer of a Fanta still stand? Because last time the first time she had come, I'd offered her, something to drink because it was a hot day. And so I said, I don't have that, but I have an iced tea. I'll go get you an iced tea. So I got her the iced tea and I chatted with her for just a couple seconds more. And then I thought, if I stay out here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to invite her in, or I just didn't feel like I could totally handle it in the moment to do the right thing. And so I just said, I have to go plug my phone in. I will talk to you later. And I shut the door and I went in the house. And I went out about 5 minutes later, and the empty can was by the door and she was gone. So I'm guessing she'll come back again, and I'm going to have to keep dealing with this. So I have another example as well that I'll try and fit into here, or maybe save that for a part 2, from someone else that has been, starting to really kind of encroach on our lives. Anyway, this video is called Take Back Your Life, and I was inspired by watching a Henry Cloud video. So Dr. Henry Cloud is the author of the Boundaries book and lots of other really great books. And so you probably have heard of him. And so credit to him, and he was talking about how we all have to deal with controlling people. And this has been a theme for a long time, and I've come face to face with a lot of difficult situations and had to realize that I was being manipulated or controlled, and had to figure out how to take back my power, how to take back my life. And people want a lot of things, and if they found ways that they can trigger you into a reaction or response that they want, they would just keep using that. So they might send you a funny joke or a picture or a quote or something that they know will get your attention, and they can kind of start manipulating you from there. But they will often just keep defaulting to the same things. They'll keep using it. And they need something from you. But we often talk about controlling people like we have no power in it. But really, we have all the power. Even if someone is very highly manipulative and controlling, there are still choices that we have. So why don't we exercise those choices? So this was the query of Dr. Henry Cloud's video, and it really got me thinking that he's so right. We say yes, we give in, we let ourselves be controlled, manipulated, coerced, giving up something that we don't really have or aren't really giving freely because we need something from them. We need their approval or their acceptance, their love. And if you need people to be pleased with you, they can control you by either giving or withholding their approval. So they say, oh, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I really appreciate you. You're such a reliable person. That praise or that acceptance that you feel in the moment, it's like, hey, that's your reward. That's what you need from them. Or you might be afraid that they'll withhold that they won't accept you, that they won't call you again, that they won't text you again and ask you, that, they're going to cut you out of their life. And so that fear is the motivator. So none of those things are good reasons, right, for giving up our lives, giving up our time, our energy. And in good, real relationships, none of what we fear is going to happen, right? If you have someone who truly loves you, who truly is in a good, healthy relationship with you, if you have to say no, or if you don't give in to them, they're going to be fine. They're going to be like, okay, talk to you later, right? And a lot of times we fear this rejection, and so we give in without even giving the other person a chance to deal with our no. And if we fear that rejection, we will always give in to make sure that it doesn't happen. And a verse that really speaks to this, I think, and I don't like usually reading verses from the Bible out of context, so there's a lot of good context with this verse. So if you want to look it up, it's 2 Corinthians 9, verse 7. And we often read this verse in relation to giving of our money, right? Tithing, but it has to do with giving anything of ourselves, our time, our energy, our help. And it says, each man should give what he has decided in his heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And reluctantly or under compulsion, that speaks to this inside pressure or out, like inside ourselves, our compulsion to do something. And it also talks about the outside pressure where we're reluctant, but we're feeling this pressure, but we're reluctant to do it. And if you're feeling controlled, it is most often from an inner compulsion to give in, right? But we need to be able to give freely and walk in freedom and be able to give and receive in a free exchange rather than, reluctantly or under compulsion. And so thinking about budgeting ourselves, like our very selves, our energy, our time, our resources, just like if you have money and you budget it, right? There's only so much money in the budget to cover these things. If you just kept giving out everything that was asked of you, you would have nothing. You'd be walking around with a deficit. And I think a lot of us are walking around with an inner deficit of our resources, either from our family, church, friends, neighbors, just people in the community that are asking too much of us. Because just like that girl that came into my yard, she probably saw that I looked like a harmless person, right? I smiled, and then I was helpful. I cared about her. I asked her how she was doing. I asked her if she needed anything. I told her if she was in an emergency situation that she could come to me. And I probably said too much, but I also didn't want to say too little, and have her in a difficult bind and have nowhere to go. But because she saw that in me, oh, this is someone that I can get more from, right? They keep coming back. And so we have to budget, what we can give and be aware of that and choose carefully what we do with our time and our resources. Entitled, demanding people will never have enough. It's reading from something I wrote here. The love or the acceptance you may be getting from them will dry up when you stop giving in. So it's not real love. And a lot of us have these one-sided relationships where we just keep giving and helping and saying yes for, the love and acceptance of the relationship that we have. But if we stopped, what would happen? Is it real or is it just one-sided? Anyway, some thoughts that I've been considering. This is a lifelong lesson that I have been very slow to learn. I'm not super assertive. I'm very conflict avoidant, and it's gotten me into a lot of trouble in the past where I haven't been able to deal directly and clearly with people because I'm afraid of confrontation or I'm afraid of losing their approval. And I really want to move into the next, half of my life or third or whatever I have left with a lot more freedom. And so I'm learning to do that. I'm getting better at it. But there's one more little story I'll just sneak in here that relates. So we have a neighbor who is, he lives with, his son and wife, and we just learned the other day, is getting dementia. And anyway, he continues to walk over onto our property and, talk to my husband when he's really busy. He always wants to help. He's always like mowing part of our grass when we've asked him not to. And then the other day, he had talked to my husband about, could he cut some branches off these trees? I didn't realize this had taken place. Anyway, long story short, again, he and his, the occupants of the house next door, all of a sudden we realized the other night that they were hacking the branches off of a bunch of our trees because there's no fence and they don't know where the property line is. We know where the property line is. So I got really angry, even though I was sick, and I went over there and I had to, we had to have a little confrontation where we said, it was too late. They'd already cut a whole bunch of the branches off. And we just said, no, this is where the property line is. These are our trees. We will deal with them. So anyway, I've just realized that this gentleman, we learned from his daughter-in-law that he is getting dementia. So, we had a lot more compassion. But realizing that this could be an issue, right? That he's just constantly coming over to our property and asking us things. How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to avoid, having confrontation? How are we going to avoid hurting his feelings while at the same time maintaining our actual literal boundaries for our property and what we want to do with it? Anyway, I talked too long, and I hate it when people say that, but anyway, I just said it. Thanks for bearing with my very, very low and husky voice today. And please leave your thoughts about, do you need to take back your life in any areas? What do you think about that verse about giving reluctantly or under compulsion? What do you think about the idea that we give in because of our own needs? Not necessarily that someone is controlling us, but that we're allowing ourselves to be controlled. And I hope that you got something out of that, and that we can all, walk into the rest of our lives with more freedom. So thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.